And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes, and rent them in two pieces, and took up also the mantle of Eliyahu that fell from him, and went back, and stood by the bank of Jordan. And he took the mantle of Eliyahu that fell from him, and smote the waters, and said, Where is... God is a noun and verb. God of Eliyahu. Well, my God is basically Eliyahu, but the phrase is still, And when he had also smitten the waters, they pottered hither and thither, and Elisha went over. And when the sons of the prophets, which were to view at Irku, saw him, they said, The spirit of Eliyahu doth rest on Elisha. And it came to, really, if it's, every prophet was supposed to be continuing the same religion, they weren't supposed to be, the prophets of Yahweh are all supposed to be of the same religion. They're thus the spirit of one rest on another, that sort of thing. And they came to meet him, and bowed themselves to the ground before him. And they said unto him, Behold now, there be with thy servants 50 strong men. Let them go, we pray thee, and seek thy master, lest peradventure the Spirit of God as a noun and verb hath taken him up, and cast him upon some mountain, or into some valley. And he said, Ye shall not send. And when they urged him till he was ashamed, he said, Send. Then they sent therefore 50 men, and 50 is very important to the whole Haran and whatnot mythology of the Urites. I don't know what the Urim, or I don't know what you call them. And they sought 3 days, but found him not. And when they came again to him, for he tarried at Yerku, he said unto them, Did I not say unto you, Go not? And the men of the city said unto Elisha, Behold, I pray thee, the situation of the city is pleasant, as my Lord seeth, but the water is not, and the ground barren. And he said, Bring me a new cruse, and put salt therein. And before we get into the rest of it, see, even when there's lacking, people can be decent. They don't have to just rush out to commit crime. And they brought it to him, and he went forth unto the spring of the waters, and cast the salt in there, and said, Thus saith God as a noun and verb, I have healed these waters, there shall not be from thence any more death or barren land. And a lot of such formulas like this have been used in Jewish magic over the years, and by magic, I don't mean that as a slur, but, folk religion. So the waters were healed unto this day, according to the saying of Elisha, which he spoke. And he went up from thence unto Bethal. And as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city, and mocked him, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of God as a noun and verb. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tore 52 children of them. And he went from thence to Mount Carmel, and from thence he returned to Samaria. Is the L referring to, Carm of God? I don't remember what Carm means. But most of us would say, doesn't like my basic creation that God gave me with the, I guess getting older or whatever people were criticizing, but to curse them to death for that sort of thing is sort of unexpected if you haven't come across it before. And Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep master, and rendered unto the king of Yashral 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with wool. And it came to pass, when Ahab was dead, that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Yashral, and King Yahuram went out of Samaria the same time and numbered all Yashral. And he went and sent to Yehoshaphat, the king of Yehuda, saying, The king of Moab hath rebelled against me. Wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I will go up. I am as thou art, my people as thy people, and my horses as thy horses. And he said, Which way shall we go up? And he answered, The way through the wilderness of Edom. So the king of Yashral went, and the king of Yehuda, and the king of Edom. I don't know if that's an aleph or an ayin, or yeah. So I'll just say Edom, and they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host and for the cattle that followed them. And the king of Yashral said, Alas, that God as a noun and verb hath called these three kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. But Yehoshaphat said, or is it the? Sometimes the T's really a the, and sometimes the TH is a t, said. The transliterations we're seeing here, said, Is there not here a prophet of God as noun and verb, that we may inquire of God as noun and verb by him? And one of the king of Yashral's servants answered and said, Here is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, which poured water on the hands of Eliyahu. And Yehoshaphat said, The word of God as a noun and verb is with him. So the king of Yashral and Yehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said unto the king of Yashral, What have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father and to the prophets of thy mother. And the king of Yashral said unto him, Nay, for God as a noun and verb called these three things together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, As God is a noun and verb of hosts liveth, Yahweh before whom I stand, surely, were it not that I regard the presence of Yehoshaphat and the king of Yehuda, I would not look toward thee, nor to see thee. But now bring me a minstrel. And it came to pass, when a minstrel played, that the hand of God as a noun and verb came upon him, and he said, Thus saith God as a noun and verb, Make this valley full of ditches. For thus saith God as a noun and verb, Ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain. Yet that valley shall be filled with water, and that ye may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beasts. And this is but a light thing in the sight of God as a noun and verb. He will deliver the Moabim also unto your hand, and ye shall smite every fenced city and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all wells of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones. And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. And when all the Moabim heard that the kings were come up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor, and upward, and stood in the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water, and the Moabim saw the water on the other side as red as blood, and they said, This is blood. The kings are surely slain, and they have smitten one another. Now therefore Moab to the spoil. And when they came to the camp of Yashral, the Yashralim rose up and smote the Moabim, so that they fled before them, but they went forward, smiting Moabim even in their country, and they beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land cast every man his stone and filled it, and they stopped all the wells of water and felled all the good trees. Only in Kir Hareseth left they the stones thereof. Howbeit the slingers went about it and smote it. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear. God is noun and verb, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thine handmaid hath not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. And she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. And she came and told the man of God. And he said, Go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall. Let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber, and lay there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammim. And when he called her, she stood before him, and he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldst thou be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the host? She answered, I dwell among mine own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily, she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About the season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. And she said, Nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thine handmaid. And the woman conceived and bore a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to a lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, and shut the door upon him, and went out. I have a number symbolism video for 333, by the way. And she called unto her husband and said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. Sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. And she said, It shall be well. Then she saddled a donkey and said to her servant, Drive and go forward, slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is that Shunammim. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with thee? It is well with thy husband, it is well with the child. And she answered, It is well. And when she came to the man of God, to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away, and the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And God is a noun and verb, hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. Then she said, Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? Then he said unto Gehazi, Gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not, and if any salute thee, answer him not again, and lay my staff upon the face of the child. Yeah, don't hit kids in the face, you know. And the mother, well, put it before them maybe, but not, you know. And the mother of the child said, As God is a noun and verb liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her, getting rumbly in the tumbly. Excuse me for the... maybe you didn't hear that, I don't know. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child, and there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, The child is not awaked. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. And he went in therefore, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto God as noun and verb. And he went up and laid upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. That doesn't sound right. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him, and the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Now, the whole mouth-to-mouth thing was like a greeting even amongst strangers, and it wasn't what it's been since motion pictures has changed most people's minds about that, but or most people's experience about that after their minds are changed. And he called Gehazi and said, Call this Shunammim, call this Shunammim. So he called her, and when she was come unto him, he said, Take up thy son. And she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son, and went out. And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servant, Set on the great pot, and see the pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out in the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered together wild gourds his lap full, and came and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. So they poured out for the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating of the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot. And they could not eat thereof. But he said, Then bring meal. And he cast it into the pot, and he said, Pour out for the people, that they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot. Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him God as a noun and verb had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper, and the Syrians had gone out by companies, and had brought away the captives out of the land of Yishrael, a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. Is it Naaman? That double A is often the ah. And she said unto his mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Yishral. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Yishral. So, and he departed, and it took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, Am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elisha, the man of God, had heard that the king of Yishral had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Yishral. So Naaman came with his horse and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. Remember, this kind of reminds me of the whole Paul thing, but, the guy actually came. But Naaman was wroth, and went away, and said, Behold, I thought, he will surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of God as noun and verb, his God, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Yishral? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage, and his servants came near and spoke unto him, and said, My father, if the prophets had bid thee do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather than when he saith to thee, Wash and be clean? Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Yishral. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. And similar sayings are said about Indra and other names that can refer to the same God, but really, perhaps only favoring one land at a time sometimes. But yeah, why can't God be, why would God be limited to space is my question. But he said, As God is noun and verb liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto the other that are considered to be gods, but unto God as noun and verb. In this thing, see the context, well, they call them gods, but this is God as a noun and a verb. Well, increasing existence, establishing, Lord doesn't really render into that tetragrammaton. In this thing, God as noun and verb, pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, and when I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, God has noun and verb, pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way, but Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master have spared Naaman the Syrian in not receiving at his hands that which he brought, but as God is noun and verb liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bore them before him. And when he came to his tower, to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go, and they departed. Sometimes it's not so much the forms, but the obedience shown through the forms. But he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. And he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and oliveyards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maid servants? The leprosy thereof of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence a leper as white as snow. And the sons of the prophets said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam, and let us make a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with him, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, Alas, master, for it was borrowed. And the man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place, and he cut down a stick and cast it thither, and the iron did swim. Therefore, said he, Take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. Then the king Assyria warred against Yishrael, and took counsel with the servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Yishrael, saying, Beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Yishrael sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there, not once or twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing, and he called his servants and said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Yishrael? And one of the servants said, None, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Yishrael, telleth the king of Yishrael the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore send he thither horses and chariots and a great host. And he came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, a host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not that they be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, God is a noun and verb, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And when God is a noun and verb, opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto God as a noun and verb, and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness, according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, This is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come unto Samaria, that Elisha said, God as noun and verb, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And God as a noun and verb, opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Yisrael said to Elisha, when he saw them, My father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he answered, Thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master. It's important to regard the rights of the captives. And he prepared great provision for them, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Yisrael. And Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, was sick. And it was told him, oh, son of Baal, huh? And it was told him, saying, The man of God is come hither. And the king said unto Hazael, Take a present in thine hand, and go and meet the man of God, and inquire of God as a noun and verb by him, saying, Shall I recover of this disease? So Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him, even of every good thing of Damascus. You want to say Hazal, but I don't know what letters are there. 40 camels burdened, and came and stood before him, and said, Thy son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, hath sent me to thee, saying, Shall I recover of this disease? And Elisha said unto him, Go and say to him, Thou mayest certainly recover, howbeit God as noun and verb hath showed me that he shall surely die. And he settled his countenance steadfastly until he was ashamed. And the man of God wept. And Hazael said, Why weepest, my lord? And he answered, Because I know that the evil that thou wilt do unto the children of Yisrael, their strongholds wilt thou set on fire, and their young men wilt thou slay with the sword, and wilt dash their children, and rip up their women with child. That reminds you of that one psalm, doesn't it? And Hazael said, But what is this thy servant a dog, that he should do this great thing? And Elisha answered, God as noun and verb hath showed me that thou shalt be king over Syria.